My name is Melissa McMurdo. I'm a Deputy District Attorney with the Ventura County District Attorney's Office. I work at the Family Justice Center as the assigned prosecutor, and prior to that assignment I worked in everything from misdemeanors to general felonies, the specialized DUI grant, and the domestic violence unit. Thank you for being here today.
Hi, I'm Kellie Tyndall. I'm a senior victim advocate with the DA's office, and my caseload is working with elders and particularly working with scams and fraud.
So here in Ventura County, we work under District Attorney Eric Nasarenko, and he subscribes to a key philosophy when it comes to scams.
And that is prevention over prosecution. Prosecution is very hard in scam cases, and prevention is best. It helps the victims, and we believe in Ventura County that we can stamp out scams. Just don't answer your phone, and we'll talk more about that later.
So, an overview of the District Attorney's Office. Here at the District Attorney's Office, we have over 100 prosecutors, and we do have a specialized unit that's dedicated to combating elder abuse. We also have the general misdemeanors and general felony units that also focus on financial fraud and scams as well. We have over 50 district attorney investigators, and what that means is the District Attorney's Office has essentially its own police department. So when a crime is reported to a local jurisdiction, such as Oxnard Police Department, that agency will investigate the crime. Once that case is filed, the District Attorney's Office then handles the case moving forward. And so if an attorney is going through the case and they realize, hey, this key witness over here was never interviewed, I'd like that person interviewed, that's where the DA investigators step in and they go out and conduct that interview as sworn peace officers. We also have a robust victim services unit that Kellie's a part of.
There's over 30 victim advocates, and we're hiring all the time. Victim advocates are a key part of the criminal case. And just a key note here, if a case has been reported to the police department, victim services can start right away. It doesn't have to be a criminal case in the criminal court system yet. It can be developing, but as long as the police report's made, victim services can start right away.
So what that means is you don't have to have a link to the District Attorney's Office in order to access victim services. All you have to do is report crime when you've been a victim of a crime. So let's talk a little bit about the criminal justice process. So when someone is a victim of a scam or fraud or any other crime, the first stop is reporting it to law enforcement. So if it's an emergency situation, calling 911. If it's not an emergency situation, calling the non-emergency phone number for the agency where you live or where the crime took place. So if you're in Ventura, you'd reach out to the Ventura Police Department. If you're in Simi Valley, the Simi Valley Police Department, so on and so forth. Once that report is made, the police officer types up all the information and submits it as a case file to the District Attorney's Office. At that step, that packet is given to a Deputy District Attorney, and they decide whether charges can be proven beyond a reasonable doubt. In the event that the case can be proven beyond a reasonable doubt, it's filed in the court system and it starts now in through the criminal justice system. The first stop is the arraignment, where someone pleads guilty or not guilty. After that stage, there's various hearings along the way with the defense attorney, the prosecution, and the judge. And ultimately, if the person does not plead guilty or the case is not dismissed, that case could go to a jury trial. And at that stage, 12 people from the community decide whether the defendant is guilty or not guilty. So that's just a huge overview of the criminal justice system. But Kellie in Victim Services also guides victims throughout the criminal justice process.
Especially with victims of scams and fraud. The first report you make would be to law enforcement, local law enforcement. But after that starts, local law enforcement works with me on a team called FAST in the county, and that stands for Financial Abuse Specialist Team. There's a round table of us that meet a couple of times a month, and we go over scams and fraud and financial crimes and how to best solve those. So once a police report has been made to one of the law enforcement agencies here, then we take the case further. We report it to all of the other agencies throughout the nation that would help this case, and that could be the FBI, that could be the Federal Trade Commission, and we can go over that in more detail and specifically to the victim once the case has been started. It has to start with local law enforcement.
And Kellie, if someone's having difficulty getting to the courthouse or coming to the hearings, what, if anything, can Victim Services do for that person?
That is a great question. That's where I come in, especially. I like to refer to myself as, you can call me the concierge of Victim Services in the court system. I'm going to make sure that you're able to get here, whether you need, maybe you have mobility issues, you would need special transportation or any kind of transportation. You as a senior would need help getting here. I'm going to make sure that you have help every step of the way. Example, I had a lady today that had just recovered from surgery, and so she had some mobility issues and she needed a wheelchair transportation. She was also a little concerned that during the course of the day that she would have to go to the restroom during the testimony in the courts. I ordered care provider to come in the court system, so she was able to have a wheelchair and she was able to have an aide with her if she needed to go to the restroom, so she would feel comfortable when she was on the witness stand. Also, I requested that we have one of our support animals, and we'll go over that too. I had Tracker come in and help with her testimony, just to give her a little comfort while she was on the witness stand.
So if anyone is a victim of a crime, do they get a victim advocate assigned?
It has to be a victim of specific types of crime. Any senior that's been a victim of a crime is going to get a victim advocate, most likely going to get me, or it's going to come to my desk and it's going to be one or two other victim advocates, a team of us that specialize with elder abuse.
Let's actually talk about elder abuse.
Okay.
Perfect segue here. So elder abuse is actually a legal term that defines who constitutes an elder. So it's not just something we call people out in society, oh, that person's an elder. Here under the law, an elder is someone who is 65 years or older. So if report a crime that's been committed against you and you're over 65 years old, that might be considered an elder abuse case. It can include a wide swath of different types of crime, such as physical, sexual, psychological abuse, as well as neglect, abandonment, and financial exploitation. So today we're obviously talking about financial exploitation, but this slide is here for you to know that financial exploitation isn't the only way you can be victimized as an elder, and we just want to put that on your radar. Elder abuse can happen in any setting. The perpetrator can be someone known to you or a complete stranger.
When I get a new case of elder abuse, let's say for financial fraud, I always do a victim assessment. And I talk with my client and make sure that all their other basic needs are being met, and talk to them in depth about their lifestyle and if they need any help or assistance. Oftentimes we find that if they're a victim of one type of abuse or crime, they have multiple issues in their case, and we try to address all of them.
So exactly, when we see someone who's been a victim of financial exploitation or a victim of neglect, oftentimes they're also a victim of potentially physical abuse or any of the other types of abuse that you see. So when one of these is present, oftentimes multiple of them are present.
We work closely with Adult Protective Services as well as Area Agency on Aging to make sure that the victim of elder abuse or senior crime, that they're getting all their needs met.
And just another note on the grant that Kellie works under, she serves elders, but she also works with people who are dependent adults. And so they also qualify for services under Kellie's grant.
And dependent adults would be considered under the law someone that has disabilities that needs special attention. So
now let's move forward and talk about the most common types of elder abuse, or the most common forms. We're looking at financial exploitation and physical abuse.
And every time that I have a case that has physical abuse, I ask for financial forensic studies of their finances, because oftentimes with physical abuse, they'll also have other forms of abuse going on in their life.
And while the focus here today is on scams specifically, we are going to raise a few issues that relate to caregiver exploitation, as well as keeping your ATM card safe. We'll touch on a few other items as well, so just so you're aware that's going to be coming. But right now, let's jump into a video from the Federal Trade Commission.
Every day, you take advantage of all kinds of services: mobile, social media, free internet search, and more. When you use these services, you're sharing information about yourself with friends, with businesses, while you're out and about, while you're at home. That information is shared and sold within businesses, with their affiliates, with ad networks. So on a typical day, you might shop at a store and use a loyalty card to take advantage of a sale. And your shopping habits may be shared or sold. You might need to fill a prescription, and your prescription history may be shared or sold. You might use a daily coupon app to get a deal at a nearby restaurant, and your location information may be shared or sold. You might visit a news site where you notice an ad for your favorite brand of shoes. It's an online sale, this weekend only, so you buy a pair. And the articles you read and your shoe preferences may be shared or sold. You might log into a social network and see that your friends are filling out an All About Me quiz. You get the quiz app and share your answers, and your quiz responses and profile information may be shared or sold. A regular day. You've taken care of business, used some free services, gotten some good deals, and revealed all kinds of information about yourself. So at the end of the day, the question is, who has your information? And where is it going next?
I don't know about you, Melissa, but that is me. I can do those things every day, and I've had people in presentations ask me, well, Kelly, how can I get my information off of the internet? How can I get my information out there safe or take it away altogether? If you live and breathe and you've gone to the doctor, you bought a car, you lived your life, you're in public school, private school, you have your information out there whether you want it or not, and once it's out there, it's never taken away, no matter how many ways you try to take it away. The best thing you can do is limit what you have out there and be safe.
And one of the key takeaways too from that video, all of the ways in which information are shared and sold in that video are all legitimate, all legitimate sources of information. So for instance, if you were to go to a grocery store and use your frequent buyer card, but here's where the kicker is that sometimes people will hack into these data collection inventories and steal the information, and so then that information gets into the wrong hands, but it's also shared and sold amongst people within that realm, who then share it with other people who are seeking to misuse that information for the purposes of perpetuating scams. So on the screen now is a slide about financial fraud and scams that are the top frauds or top scams that the FTC reported from 2022. So as you can see on this list, we've got imposters, online shopping, prizes, sweepstakes and lotteries, investments, and business job opportunities. And so we're actually going to be going through this entire list in a little bit more depth, but there is a key takeaway here.
Don't answer your phone. That's what I said earlier. I oftentimes start out my presentations in person by just don't answer your phone and we can go home now. And I know that is not the case. You have to answer your phone sometimes. But the truth is you don't have to answer your phone right this second. There are ways to put your cell phone on silent and only answer the calls that are listed in your contact list, meaning that all the other scam calls or calls that your phone doesn't recognize will go straight to voicemail, and you can answer those calls later when you won't react emotionally from someone who calls you in a panic, because that's what scammers do. Scammers are not attacking you logically, they're attacking you with your heart. And if you If you respond with your emotions and your heart, you've lost the game. They have a potential inside to victimize you. So please don't answer your phone. Let it go to voicemail. You don't have to do anything right this minute. You can let it go to voicemail and listen to it right after they record it. And then you get to decide if you want to call them back or you want to answer this call or if this call is legitimate. Because when they get you in the moment, when you answer the phone, that's when they've got you possibly emotionally and you're not thinking logically.
And so a lot of the time when these imposters call on the phone or these scam artists call on the phone, they're telling you something very distressing. Someone's injured in the hospital. In order to get this surgery, they need money now.
You gotta act right now. If you don't act, someone will die.
Or your grandchild calls from jail and says, I was arrested, please don't tell anyone, I need bail money, please wire this money. Or
if someone on the phone tells you not to tell anyone, tell everyone.
And that's oftentimes with the specific bail scam. They use, this is so embarrassing, don't tell mom, don't tell dad, please, please, please. And this scam works on people, and we see this regularly coming through.
Because it's with their heart and not their head.
Yes, another one that we'll go into more depth in later on is someone from the government calling and saying, you owe this money and if you don't pay it, we're going to throw you in jail. That's another scam, and we'll go into the depths on that in a moment. But now let's flip the topic here for a second, because Kelly has said don't answer the phone, but sometimes you're going to see, my brother's calling, I'm going to answer this. And we're obviously not telling you not to answer your phone calls from your friends and family, but be aware that something that is very common that we see here at the District Attorney's Office is the prevalence of spoof apps. And what this is it's an app that anyone can put on their phone, that once it's downloaded on their phone, they can type in any phone number they want, and that phone number will show as the outgoing phone number giving a call. So if I went onto the spoof app on my phone and typed in, my sister's phone number and then called Kelly, it would show as my sister calling Kelly on Kelly's phone. And so something that we've been made aware of through various trainings that we've gone through is that if you ever do answer the phone for a scammer and they record your voice, the science is such now.
This is so scary.
This is very scary, and this is one of these dark web, deep fake concepts, but once they get something between 6 and 12 words of your voice, they can actually then create any conversation with your voice that they want. So as you can imagine, if I see my sister calling, I answer it, and then I hear her voice, it might actually not be her. So if somebody is, anyone, even people are pressuring you for money right now, it's okay to step back, do some research, get off the phone, call maybe another family member, maybe even call your sister back and see if that was in fact her.
Melissa, my best friend called me the other day, Sonia from South Carolina, and I wanted to try this out on her. And I said, don't talk to me anymore. Answer this question first. Tell me who was our 5th grade teacher and what we did to get in trouble that year. And she said, what? I don't understand. What are you talking about? And I said, I want to make sure that you are who you say you are. I know you sound like my best friend, but I want to make sure. 5th grade teacher and what we did to get in trouble, because if you don't answer that, I'm going to hang up on you right now. And she said, well, our 5th grade teacher was named Miss Feldhauser, and we got in trouble because we put caterpillars in her desk drawer. And then I explained to her why I asked her such, silly questions.
Yes, and on that note, talking about these silly questions, Kelly actually has a really important thing to talk about with respect to social media quizzes.
Oh, yes. It's a double-edged sword. I love social media because I'm from the East Coast, and the fastest, easiest way for me to keep in touch with my family and friends back home is Facebook and social media. And oftentimes, they have pictures and weddings and things, and I want to keep up with it as it's happening. And oftentimes, like my cousins will take surveys that says, what you take the survey and it'll tell you what type of animal or something you are. And my cousin's a lion, and I want to figure out if I'm a lion too, or what that has to do, or some other kind of pop quiz, or what was your first concert you went to, and then you type in, I went to the Village People. That was my first concert, and then everyone else types in behind you what on your contact list what concert they went to first, and then all of a sudden someone out there can scam you and they say, hey, I went to that concert with the Village People. Do you remember you and Sonia were in the front row and we were in the back row watching you? And and then you go, oh yeah, I know you. And it's a scam. Whatever you put out there, and especially with the social media, with those quizzes, oftentimes those are bought and sold by scammers. So
the takeaway here is that someone could be an imposter scammer calling you on the phone and saying, yeah, this is your sister. Remember we went to your first concert together? And so they'll start feeding you some information that's actually public information. So just be wary. Have something that maybe is less known information that you've never shared, or maybe is only between you and that person. If anyone's really pressuring you strongly for money. So that's the first thing we want to talk about. Just put a hold on anything. When someone over the telephone or an email or a text is trying to get money from you, even if it's your best friend, your sister, take a step back and a pause and figure out, especially if this is something they don't normally do, make sure that you're talking or you verifying who that person is, because it most likely could be a scam. Just verify, hang up, call that person, look up their number if you have to, but talk to them and do it in person if you can. That's the best way to do things. Yes, and so we have this slide here that Kelly and I both really love, because the key here, if you remember nothing else from this training, it's don't answer your phone, and if you do, always verify the information you're getting on the phone. Verify, verify, verify. Yes, because while our phones nowadays do sometimes say scam risk when you see your phone, an unknown number calling on the phone, it is not all the time like that. You can certainly have scammers come through under the spoof app or something that doesn't look like a... That'd be great if that came up every time. I'd go, okay, I'm not answering that one. But it doesn't happen every time. Exactly. So exercise caution. That's really the takeaway with the phone calls. So this would be an example of an emergency style scam call. It could also come through texting. I could see that as a way that people can be trying to infiltrate. But you see here it says, hi Grandpa, it's me. And Grandpa responds, Sebastian, is that you? Well, here we have, he's just fed the name to potentially a scammer. Yes, it's me, Sebastian. Grandpa, I'm in trouble and I need money for bail. Grandpa says, what happened? Please don't tell Mom or Dad. I'll get in so much trouble. Tell Mom or Dad. Tell Mom or Dad right away, because most likely you call Mom or Dad and they'll say, no, Sebastian's in his room playing a video game. He's safe. And alternatively, call Sebastian. And see if Sebastian answers. Call Mom and Dad. Call anyone. Really take a step back. Take a step back. Even if you don't call anyone, tell them, I've got to hang up right now. I'll call you right back. But that gives you a chance to pause and think about what you're doing. If you don't talk to anyone but the dog, sit down and process this and not in a heightened state of emotions. Because when you act with your heart, you don't act with your logic. Yeah, and really again too, let's say now you do take a step back. You do call Mom and Dad and you don't get an answer. You do call Sebastian, he doesn't pick up. Maybe call the jail where Sebastian is supposedly sitting and verify that he's there. Maybe call the hospital if it's a type of family emergency, the person's in the hospital. Call that hospital and say, is my niece there? Is my granddaughter there? Whoever it may be that's requesting the money, verify. Don't just blindly go into any situation and just start giving out money. And I can't emphasize this enough, but this is incredibly common and incredibly effective. So we really want you to kind of take away from this. It's okay to take time to get back. There is nothing that is so immensely important that it can't be handled in 15 minutes from now. Melissa, I read somewhere that 90% of scams start with a telephone call. We could really stop scams if we stopped answering and responding to a call right away. So now we're going to jump into this next video. Kelly, did you have anything you wanted to say about
No.
introducing it? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and play it.
You live here, but you've been scammed by someone in another country, over here. Report the scam at econsumer.gov. Reporting a scam at econsumer.gov, a partnership of consumer protection agencies around the world, can provide hundreds of authorities with vital information to combat international scams. So if something like this happens to you,
I shop online a lot. The dress I ordered never arrived, but the bill did.
Got a call and I won a sweepstakes for a free vacation. I wired cash to pay the taxes. I'm still waiting for them to call back.
I had been looking for a job online when this message popped up about a job offer overseas. But there was a catch. I had to pay the fees up front to process my application. I paid for it and never heard back.
has something like this happened to you? Report the scam at econsumer.gov. You'll learn what steps you can take to combat international fraud and help consumer protection authorities conduct investigations and prevent international scams. Reporting a scam can make a world of difference.
It's really important to report scams. And you say, well, there's so many of them out there and there's nothing they can do. The Federal Trade Commission, the Consumer Affairs, they're all very serious, FBI, in trying to stamp out scams. And the more they learn about them, where they are coming from, what they're doing, the easier it is for them to stop. So I believe in reporting. Oftentimes we don't report, but just because we know it's a scam, I think it's important to report as often as we can.
Exactly, and the fact of the matter is if nobody reports a scammer, and let's say they are operating locally, that person's never going to get caught or checked or pursued. So it is important to report when you've been a victim of a scam, because even an attempted scam, so law enforcement can follow up on it. And something that came up in that video that I think is important to highlight, because econsumer.gov focuses on international scams, and so many of the scams that we see are international scams, which is part of the reason they're so hard to investigate and prosecute.
Prevention over prosecution.
And that's exactly why Kelly's saying that. It's not that we don't want to prosecute, it's that it's so hard to locate the source of the scam. So the important takeaway from this section is, first, no one is giving away free money.
No one.
No one. If you've won a sweepstakes, a lottery,
And did you even sign up for that lottery or sweepstakes they're talking about that you won? Probably not.
you are never, if you do win something, you are not going to have to pay for your winnings.
You never pay fees or handling anything for something free. If it's a lottery free, you don't have to pay taxes and fees up front. That will be taken care of. You don't pay for something free.
And so one of the scams that is not necessarily over the phone, it's through the mail that is prevalent and that I've personally seen, is where a person wins a huge sum of money, let's just say $5,000. That check is mailed to them in the mail. That person then is told, go deposit the check and send back $2,000 because your winning is actually just $3,000, but we want to make sure that you're legit.
Don't do it, it's a fake check.
Not only is it a fake check, when you do deposit it, or when that check is deposited and the $2,000 is withdrawn for that scammer, now, once 3 weeks later, when the bank realizes this isn't a legitimate check, now that bank puts that consumer on the hook for the $2,000 that was taken out. And so even though it was by no fault of the person who cashed the check thinking they had won something, they didn't have,
And they were trying to do the right thing by giving the $2,000 back. They just lost their $2,000.
Exactly. And I've seen this firsthand. And so we want everyone to be aware that this is a scam that happens. Now, likewise, you don't want to give out any personal identifying information to anyone who ever contacts you. So over the phone, someone says, "Hi, may I please speak with Mr. Smith?" Yes, this is Mr. Smith. Okay, Mr. Smith, I just want to confirm your identity. Please tell me your birthday and the last 4 of your social.
No.
You stop the call there and say, wait, who are you calling from? And they say, you know, such and such bank. You say, okay, I'm going to call you right back. You hang up the phone, you Google the bank's phone number, and you call back that way. Because most often, that was a scammer trying to get your personal identifying information and not actually the bank.
No real source is going to call you and then ask you to verify who you are. They're not going to initiate it by call. They're not going to email you. They're going to send you a mailed letter.
Exactly. And so be very mindful that you never want to give personal identifying information out over the phone.
And don't click on links if they text you. I have a bank alert that always sends me if my count is going, you know, too low, they'll send me a text. But so you may have a text message from your bank. Never click on an embedded link on a text. Always go talk to your bank. Call the bank. If you know the number, don't click on the number that just texts you. Find the number on your own independently. Google maybe. If you find a phone book, look them up.
Exactly. So whether it's through text message or email, even if you get an email that looks very authentic from your banking institution, from the government, from whoever it may be, from your best friend, you never click on links in the email. You go to Google or some other search engine. You type in the information so you can bring it up that way. Because oftentimes what scammers will do is they'll send you a very authentic looking email. It'll say something very distressing, and Kelly has a great story on point on this that she'll tell you in a second. And your first inclination is going to be that you want to click the link, but that's how hackers then get onto your computer. They install malware on your computer. They can access your identifying information on your computer, so don't click on those links.
It's so easy to do. I almost fell prey to being a victim of clicking on a link myself. I always make it a practice. Every morning I get up, I start looking at my personal email. I hadn't had enough coffee yet, and I looked at my email, and the first email I saw was McFay said that I was going to get charged annually for $429 or something to keep my computer safe. And I was like, oh no, I didn't set it up to be annual. I paid one time. So this is terrible. They can't take my money. I need my money. And I almost clicked on it right then. And I went, Kelly, you're clicking on a link that you're telling people not to do. And I stopped, but anyone can fall prey to it. And why? Because they attacked me emotionally. I wanted to keep my money. I wasn't thinking logically. Make sure you take a pause whenever you see something like that. Look it up, take a second, think about it, and make sure if it's early in the morning that you have enough caffeine.
So, exactly. Don't trust anything that's given to you, sent to you. Always verify. Because sometimes you might actually have an authentic text message from your banking institution that's legitimate that you do need to follow up on. As an example, the other day I got a text message saying, fraud alert, did you spend X amount of money at this jewelry boutique? And I was like, oh my goodness, I was about to click the link, and then I of course remembered this training. I called, and it was real. It was really from my bank. It was really fraud that had happened in Montana, and we were able to solve that. So you obviously don't want to let things languish either, because authentic, legitimate communications can be sent to you through email and text, so just be aware of that.
And it can be through the mail too. You can get fraud through the mail. So I make it a practice. There's always a lot of mail. I'm getting a lot of mail these days. I don't look at my mail every day because I have all my bills set up with automatic bill pay. So I know that, I'm not going to have my lights turned off because I forgot to pay the bill. I stack all my mail up and then I look at it at the end of the week on Saturday morning with enough caffeine or tea or something to wake up with. And I look at all my mail and I decide, what to do. And if I see something that needs to be taken care of right away, I do that. Sometimes I've seen things that are fraudulent, and I know that this is a fraud letter. Something came through the U.S. Postage. The postal system has their own investigative team. If you come across something that you think is fake that's been mailed to you by the U.S. Postal Service, take it to your bank. I mean, not your bank, your U.S. Post Office, and ask the postmaster to have this investigated, because this is not just a local crime. This would be considered a federal crime.
Exactly. So follow up, report scams where they've happened. That way they can be investigated.
And make sure that when you're looking at your mail, you know, I said I look at my mail every week, that you take care of your mail. You don't just throw it in the trash can, because we've got scammers that's going through your trash as well. I used to shred everything, but I get so much mail that I've burnt out 2 shred machines. So now I use inker that blots out the personal information. But make sure that you take care of your personal information on your mail and you're not just throwing it in the trash.
So now I'm going to play this next video. Is there any intro that you want to do to this? Okay, so we're going to go ahead and play it.
If you have a telephone, it probably seems like illegal robocalls are out of control. I'm Katie Daffin, an attorney at the Federal Trade Commission. If you pick up the phone and hear a recorded message instead of a live person, that's a robocall. Consumers are getting more and more robocalls, and they are not happy about it. As the number of calls has multiplied, the number of complaints has too. The reason for the spike in robocalls has to do with technology. Companies are using auto dialers that can send out thousands of phone calls every minute for an incredibly low cost. What's important is that the companies that use this technology don't bother to screen for the numbers on the National Do Not Call Registry. If a company doesn't care about obeying the law, you can be sure they're trying to scam you. You've probably gotten robocalls about candidates running for office or charities asking for donations. These robocalls are allowed. But any robocall that's trying to sell you something probably is illegal, unless you've given your written permission to get calls from that company. The FTC has stopped billions, yes, billions of robocalls in the last 2 years. Tracing these calls is a tough job, and there are a few reasons for that. One is that many different companies use the same or very similar recorded messages. Another is that they fake the caller ID information that you see on your phone. That's called caller ID spoofing, and new technology makes it very easy to do. And a third is that the robocallers often place the calls through internet technology that hides their location. At the FTC, we're continuing our aggressive enforcement efforts, and we're also looking for innovative technological solutions to the robocall problem. For more information, please visit ftc.gov/robocalls. That's ftc.gov/robocalls.
So a note on robocalls, a lot of people that we do outreach with say, well, when I get a phone call, I answer it and tell them to put me on the do not call list. And that's fine if the person who's calling you is from a legitimate organization that respects the do not call list. But as we've learned, so many of these are actually not legitimate organizations. They're actually criminal scammers. The do not call list is futile with them. They're not going to respect the do not call list. And when you've engaged and answered the phone and perhaps had a short conversation with the person, now they have your voice potentially for that deep
They
fake.
have your information.
Yes, and what do they do if somebody answers the phone and starts engaging with a spammer? What ends up happening, Kelly?
Well, they could hang up on the call eventually and say, I know you're a scammer, or, you know, whatever you do with them. But that scammer has learned that you will engage with them by answering the call. And if you may not fall for that scam that day, but you're a potential mark for them, so they could sell that information to their deep, dark scam buddies, and you'll get 1,000 more calls. After you answer one, it seems like you get a whole lot more. Well, that's because they've sent your information on. She didn't fall for it for this time, but she might fall for it next time from you. So they pass it on to their other scam buddies.
Because they've identified you as someone who's willing to pick up the phone. So now switching gears a little bit, we're going to talk about social media. So what we see here in terms of scams on social media, we see obviously friend imposters can take place where an account appears.
My policy is that I'm not going to be friends with anyone on Facebook that I don't already know. Because oftentimes they're imposters. They're not who they say they are. And you should never give money to anyone over the internet, especially someone that you don't know. And that's what happens. That's what ends up happening a lot. There's a lot of potential to have connections with family and friends on social media. You don't really have to connect with someone you don't know.
And just like someone can do a spoof phone number over the phone, someone can make a spoof account that looks like it could be Kellie's account. Kellie's account contacting me.
I have people all the time that are so sad and feel like it's their fault that they were a victim of a scam, especially with friendship scams or romance scams. You have to realize that these people are well educated and well funded, and their main purpose is to separate you from your money, and they've learned how to do this by befriending you, and it can be a long friendship. They could work this friendship out for a long time. I had a case where this lady was a friend, made a friend with what she thought was a doctor from Kuwait, and her friendship grew over time. And she said that this doctor had family, had children back home, and he couldn't get money to them. Would she help? Well, of course she wanted to help. She wanted to help him. This is a potential scam. Don't become friends with people that you haven't seen in person, and especially don't give them money. Especially people you don't know, people you meet on Facebook or on some social media platform should not ask you for money. If they do, they're not friends. You don't have to be friends with someone and give them money online.
And even if it's a friend or family members of yours coming through social media asking you for money, it's okay to pick up the phone and give them a call. Make sure that this person is who they really say they are. You know, suppose Kellie were to send me a message on Facebook saying, you know what, I'm hitting hard times, I need $100. I would call Kellie and say, hey Kellie, did you just ask for $100? And she'd say, no, that wasn't me. Oh, Kellie, your account's been hacked, or someone's made a spoof account on you.
And you know, my Facebook account just got hacked the other day. I keep a Facebook account. I have this love-hate relationship with it, but I keep my Facebook account because I have family and friends that are far away and I want to keep up with them. But oftentimes, if a family member gets hacked, then my account gets hacked too, because all of their contacts on their social media, it goes out. It's like spider webs. It keeps going out, and it hacks everyone in their contact list, and it hacks everyone in my contact list, and the list goes on and on. So be careful when you're on social media. I'm not saying don't do it, because I do it, but just be careful, because not everyone is who they say they are.
Yep, just like with phones, don't trust, verify. Really seek out what really happening here. Who is this person? If they're a stranger, obviously exercise caution. Probably don't engage with strangers. So now switching gears, I have this example about the IRS, but this actually can be used as an example for almost everything when it comes to phone-initiated scams. But the IRS scam that is around, it's present currently, it's been going on for years. Someone calls you from the IRS or emails you from the IRS and says, you owe back taxes. If you do not pay these back taxes immediately, we will issue a warrant for your arrest. So,
they could even say scarier things like they've got the police coming after you right now.
Police are coming right now. You need to pay this money right now. So there's a couple red flags. First red flag that the FTC has identified is that the IRS does not contact you through the phone. The IRS sends its official correspondence through the mail.
I know, because I got one.
Yes, but also be aware, fraud and scammers can also operate through the mail. But what you want to know, though, is if you're getting a phone call from the IRS, it's not the IRS.
No, they never call. They never text. They're going to send you a letter in the mail.
And then the second thing that the FTC has identified is that what these scammers are doing is they're pressuring people to pay through cryptocurrency or by wiring money.
Never pay by cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, wire, or even gift cards. All of these are just not ways to make any legitimate payment. Don't do it.
And what the IRS has come out and said is that in their official correspondence that comes through the mail, they do not specify the method of payment, whether it's check, credit card, cash, and they don't. I don't believe they accept payment through cryptocurrency specifically. No. So that's a red flag. You might get a text message from the IRS let me back up. You might get a text message from a scammer as an imposter of the IRS with a tax rebate that you have to click. That doesn't happen. Don't click on
Or
embedded
stimulus
links.
money. I've seen those texts come out. Got to click on this to get stimulus money. Don't click. Don't click. Don't click. Don't answer your phone.
And if you want the official information from the IRS on the status of your refund, you can go to irs.gov. That is a legitimate website. You can go on, you can Google Google or use any other search engine. The IRS
We've got an
official
IRS
website.
office in Camarillo. They can go in person if they wanted to.
Exactly. So again, these time-sensitive, you need to pay now threats being made, whether it be a bank, an accountant, Edison, SoCal Gas Company, the IRS, any sort of governmental agency, organization, banking agency, financial institution, none of them are going to be calling you and hounding you for money that needs to be paid at this moment. So
Scammers will. Scammers will call you, demand payment right now, and if you don't pay them, you're in trouble. And we all want to stay out of trouble, and we want to listen to the government. We want to do what we're supposed to do, and we don't want to owe anyone. Just don't fall for the urgency. Take a step back, take a pause.
And so let's just say you get a phone call that you think is official. Maybe you forgot what I just talked about, that the IRS doesn't call you, but let's just say you think the IRS is calling you, or your bank, or whatever organization may be at play here. Write down the information, hang up. Research what you've just been told, call a friend or family member. Don't act. You need to go and research, and then report the scam, because we want to make sure that these scammers are being investigated and hopefully caught and prosecuted. So switching gears on other types of financial abuse that you can encounter in the community.
I always like to put this slide up because I talk about cases that I have. I always caution people, if you're going to the bank and you need help getting in there because you've had some mobility issues or you have a care provider, make sure that you're going to your banker on your own. You can have them wheel you in, wheel you up to the ATM, but tell them that they can go sit in the car and you'll call them when you're done. You need to keep your bank safe. I've had cases where care providers, housekeepers, friends, family have taken over bank accounts. Make sure that you know who's on your bank account, and if you want to let them on your account or not. Don't have them on there taking over your account. I'll also show a picture of a car because I had a lady on my caseload that was home, and she had this housekeeper that wanted to help her with shopping and taking her to her doctor's appointments, but she said, I'm having car issues. My car broke down. I can get to work on the bus, but I can't go pick up your groceries or your medication. Can't take you to your doctor's appointments. Will you help me get a car? Maybe you could go to the Ford dealership with me and co-sign. And the lady lived on a meager Social Security benefits only. She had a very tight budget, but she wanted to help her housekeeper, and she also wanted to get the chores done. She wanted someone that could go pick up things. So she didn't have the money to buy a car on her own, but she had good credit, and the good credit allowed her to co-sign for that car for her housekeeper. Well, the housekeeper left, didn't call back, didn't come, and moved to Oklahoma Arkansas. She moved to Arkansas and couldn't find her, couldn't keep up with her, and it's on my caseload right now. We're trying to find her, but meanwhile, this victim is on the hook for paying the car note. Why? Because she co-signed it. She helped her housekeeper, what she thought, but to keep her credit clean, she has to make the car note until we get the car back. So I also put titles, property. Did you want to say something about the car purchase?
Well, what I wanted to just mention is that we're not telling you can't help people who are in need. That's not the message here.
But be careful. If you want to co-sign for something, make sure you can pay for it if they can't.
Exactly. So if you're going to co-sign for someone, you have to just go in with the understanding that you could be financially on the hook for it, and that we're not telling you need to assume the worst in every person you come into contact with, but you should be aware of the potential repercussions of signing on to...
Be careful of anything you do financially.
Exactly.
And I always put property titles up here because property titles can get signed off. I've seen cases, it's always about cases that I've seen where a person got on their title of their house and sold their house out from under them. You don't have to pay companies to keep your accounts and your titles safe. I believe that you can do these things on your own. You can go to the clerk and recorder's office, their website here in the county, or you can call them, go by and ask how to best safeguard your title, because there are ways that you can keep up and make sure that your title is safe.
So Kelly talked a little bit about this earlier, about safeguarding your financial information, but we want to talk specifically about what can happen with an ATM card.
There again, I talk about my cases. It's always case. I'm afraid of doing a lot these days because of things that I've seen. I'm very cautious. Make sure that you don't give out your password, your ATM. Use the bank during the daytime or someplace that you know well. I'm not saying that there is a ATM in a dark alley, but please don't go use a dark alley ATM. Make sure that you don't share your password with someone. Don't let someone watch you use your password. I have a case where a gentleman had mobility issues and he wanted some pocket money. He asked his care provider, please, can you go get me $100 out of the bank and here's my password. Well, he checked his bank account. The care provider brought back the $100 and he checked a few weeks. He checked over and over and there was nothing wrong with his account. He had exactly what he was supposed to have in it. And he didn't check his bank all the time because he was on automatic bill pay. But the banks started giving him notice that his account was overdrawn. What happened? It was about maybe 4, 5, 6 months later, he had no money in his primary account. What happened? Well, what happened was, I don't believe that the care provider was a bad person, but the person slipped out his card when he wasn't noticing it, slipped it out of his wallet, went and took a few dollars one day and figured out that he could take a few more and a few more, and all of a sudden that bank was cleared out of all of his money. And we think that the federal government reimburses because it says on the bank, secured by the federal government, that they will replace that money. Well, they do in certain circumstances, but not in this one. Why? Because he had given out his password one time to his care provider, and that gave that care provider privilege to go take money out any other time by the federal government standards. We're prosecuting the case currently because there's videotape of the man taking the money out of the account, but he hasn't got his money reimbursed by the security system. So it's in the process now, but it doesn't have to happen if he didn't give out the password. Keep your password safe. Go to the ATM on your own. If you can't get there, figure out some way. If they have to wheel you up, like I said, and go sit in the car until you've done your banking, do your banking on your own and not let someone do it for you.
So I'd like to highlight a key distinction here. When you're out and about and you get a fraud alert that someone's used your credit card in Montana, the bank will usually reimburse the money that was stolen as a result of that fraud, because somebody somewhere got your number and they went out without your permission, used the card, and stole that money. However, if you give your card to someone and give the PIN number for your debit card, whatever it may be, that person didn't acquire that information illegally. They acquired it legitimately, even though it shouldn't have been given out. So the bank draws a firm distinction. They'll reimburse money that's stolen illegitimately, but the bank isn't going to reimburse money where someone has been given former permission to use that information. But just so you're aware, if a criminal case does proceed through a conviction, victims are entitled to restitution, which is the amount of money that would have been stolen in the instance. So let's say that.
But that's no guarantee right now. It hasn't been convicted.
Yes, so exactly. If there's no conviction, there's not necessarily restitution. But also, even if a restitution order is made, the victim of that crime may never see that money because maybe that criminal defendant doesn't have the money to reimburse. So be very cautious and do not give out your ATM number or your PIN number or any passwords to your financial information. So life planning.
I always talk about life planning because there again, I talk about the cases and the things that I see in real life. I don't hold a law degree. I'm a victim advocate. I come from my work from a social worker point of view. But I see these things every day, and I like to talk about the things to help a person. I want to make sure that you know that there are certain documents that you need to have in place before you need them, because when you need these documents, it's too late to go out and get them. And these are a will, a power of attorney, designated guardian, and directive to a physician or for medical care. Because I see oftentimes families come in the Hall of Justice or the Family Justice Center and they're needing restraining orders on one sibling or another sibling because they can't decide what mom wants and they want the brother or the sister to stay away from it, and they know exactly what mom wants, but mom has never designated what mom wants. If you get these documents in order ahead of time, then no one has to figure it out. There's no fighting over it, and your wishes are going to be honored. So if you can't afford to do like a power of attorney ahead of time, or set up a will or a trust fund, if you're a senior in Ventura County, you can always go to Gray Law. Gray Law holds office hours in every senior center, and there are other free legal services for seniors in the county, and I'm sure that you can call Area Agency on Aging and get contacts for those, but just make sure that you get these documents before you need them, because when you need them, it's too late.
And so where we kind of like to sum up this presentation is by just reminding you about the resources available to you if you've been a victim of a scam, a fraud, or of elder abuse in general. You do have access to the Family Justice Center. The Family Justice Center is located in Ventura, across the street from the Ventura County Medical Center, right at the intersection of Loma Vista and Hillmont. And there, it's basically a one-stop shop for services.
For anything you need if you're in an emergency situation.
Yes, and it covers 6 different crime types: elder abuse, domestic violence, sexual assault, child abuse, hate crimes, and human trafficking. So if this financial fraud scams, if you are 65 or older, that would constitute elder abuse. So we have over 35 agency partners that we work with who can come into the room at the Family Justice Center and do wraparound services for you. And what's really neat, if it's applicable in your life, if you've been a victim of domestic violence, coming soon, we are going to be having a domestic violence shelter at the Family Justice Center, which is an incredible resource for the community. I want to leave you with the contact information for the Family Justice Center. Feel free to take a screenshot or a photo of this information in case you ever need it. And specifically, I'd like to highlight that if you ever feel like it's not safe for you to make a phone call, there is a phone number for you to text message. So you can send a covert text message if you ever need that level of assistance. Obviously, we always want to encourage someone to call 911 if there is an emergency situation, but we want to also provide these resources after you've called 911. Kelly mentioned earlier about our courthouse facility dogs. We've got 3 of them. They're all
my favorite advocates.
Yes, and they're all black labs. Tracker, who is on the far right in the blue collar, he's stationed at the Family Justice Center, and Star and Comet, the other 2 dogs, are stationed here at the Hall of Justice, and they assist Kelly on her cases regularly.
They assist us all the time. Star, she has we have cubicle offices, and Star is a few cubicles down from me with her handler, and all the dogs are trained in stress response. They can somehow sense stress hormones, and when I've had a hard day and a long day in court, sometimes Star will come waddling down to my office and my desk and put her head on my knee because she knows that I need a little extra love that day. And that's what they do for our victims. Oftentimes victims are scared to come to court, or they're stressed out about coming to court because they don't know what to expect, and it is a kind of frightening place if you haven't been here before. And Star, Tracker, Comet, they can make it a little easier on you if you have to testify, if you have to come in for an interview or witness prepping. We can always have a dog available for you. They can come out and just drool on your knee if you need them to. They're a great addition to the victim services. I'd like to have one with me on every case if I can.
And they are available. So that's just another resource available should you come to the Family Justice Center or the courthouse. So Kellie,
The
take it
takeaways: don't answer your phone. Don't answer your phone. Don't answer your phone. You can get your phone set up where you're only answering calls that are in your contact list. Everything else will go to voicemail. You can listen to it hour later, end of the day, or never listen to it if you don't want to. The takeaway is don't answer your phone. That's the gateway for the rest of the world to enter your life and potentially cause you harm. If you do answer the phone, be safe, be careful, and verify, verify, verify.
and don't click on embedded links in text messages or in emails. Just don't click on them. Even if they're legitimate, don't click on them. Always just make it your general practice. Go onto a search engine, pull up the website for the entity or company that is reaching out to you, respond that way. Place a phone call. Don't click on embedded links. It's not worth the hassle in your life and potentially opening yourself up to a scammer. Okay, so something really exciting that we want to talk about here today is that we are putting together a Scam and Fraud Prevention Academy. This is going to be happening in summer of 2023, and it's going to be a peer-to-peer kind of support mentorship that we're educating members of the community on.
Because people only listen to us so much. I believe that people will listen to each other more, and peer-to-peers can know it a whole lot better. You can take it to your Rotary clubs or your Kiwanis or you can church or your temple, and you can engage with your family and friends and help stamp out scams. I believe that we can stop scams in Ventura County if we all band together and try to stop scams before they stop, because what's the takeaway? Eric Nazarenko believes in prevention of scams. We can stop them.
And if you would like to be part of the Scam Prevention Academy, feel free to reach out to Kellie or myself. Our contact information is here on the screen. Please take a screenshot of it, take a picture of it, write it down, whatever is easiest for you. We want to be able to link up with people who are interested in educating the community on scam prevention. Also, feel free to write down our information if you have any follow-up questions on this presentation. Yes. We can't give legal advice, but we can certainly direct you to resources if they're appropriate.
If you've been a victim of a scam or you know someone that needs resources, that needs contacts, if I don't know them, I'm going to find them for you. You can reach out to me. The best way to reach me is through email. If I'm not doing outreach and preventing scams, I'm usually in court.
And thank you for your time today. We really appreciate that you stuck around for this presentation.
And don't answer your phone.